Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good evening. Tonight we're going to learn about tariff. But first, we must know that free trade is the best. Each country benefits from free trade, and by extension, the whole world benefits from free trade. Free trade argument posits that open markets foster most efficient use of world resources. However, free trade policies often meet resistance among companies and workers who face losses in income and jobs because of import competition. As a result, policymakers are torn between global efficiency and the need to get votes. Tariff, what is tariff? Tax or duty levied on a product when it crosses national boundaries. We have import tariff and export tariff. Most common, export tariff is less common, illegal under US Constitution, commonly used by developing nations. Protective tariff protects domestic producers from foreign competition, facilitates increase in output of import competing producers. Revenue tariff generates tax revenue by placing tariffs on either imports or exports. Now, only 1% of total federal revenues in the US. In the past, it was bigger. So many developing nations rely on tariffs as a major source of income for the national, for the government, but not in rich country. In poor country, yes, tariff as a source of income for the government is more common in developing countries and poor countries, not in rich countries. Three types of tariff: specific, fixed amount of money per physical unit of imported product. For example, 15 cents per unit. Relatively easy to apply and administer. Degree of protection varies inversely with changes in import prices. For example, a poor person who buys a 300 ringgit TV, if there is a fixed or specific tariff of 10 ringgit per unit of TV, so he pays 200 ringgit TV. Did I say 200? 300 ringgit TV and 10 ringgit duty on that. For another case, a rich person who can buy 3,000 or 4,000 ringgit TV, but still the amount of specific tariff is only 10 ringgit. 10 ringgit over 3,000 ringgit TV, that's peanuts. So it's not fair. Okay. Specific tariff provides domestic producers increased protection during recession when falling prices. Okay. So there's another tariff here, ad valorem tariff on value added. This is better. Primarily used with manufactured goods because it can be applied to products with range of great variations from less expensive to more expensive. Fixed percentage, not the specific amount, but percentage of the value of imported products. For example, 50% per unit. So it doesn't matter, the TV is 200, 300 or 5,000, whatever, still 15% of that 5,000, that's fair. This ad valorem tariff maintains constant degree of protection for domestic producers through the business cycle. Whatever business cycle, it maintains the protection. So in order to levy the tariff, the custom must value the amount of that product, the price of that product. So custom valuation, determining value of imported products. It is complex, subject to disagreement. The US traditionally uses free on board, FOB. Europe uses CIF. Which one is bigger? CIF is bigger. Because the cost of the product plus insurance plus freight. When the product reaches the shore in Europe, so the tariff is applied to the price of the cost of the product plus insurance plus freight. Whereas free on board is lesser than CIF because it's free on board. Tariff applied to products value as it leaves exporting countries. The third one is compound tariff. We have three types of tariff: specific, ad valorem, and compound, applied to manufactured products composed of raw materials subject to tariffs. Okay. When we talk about tariff, the most important is we want to know how much is the actual protection given to a product. So that's what we call effective tariff rather than nominal tariff. Because nominal tariff rate is rate published in country's tariff schedule, applies to value of finished product. Effective tariff rate takes into account not only nominal tariff on finished goods, but also any tariff applied to imported inputs that goes into the finished product. This is the calculation. Effective rate of protection. At the top is nominal tariff, what is published, minus A, which is the ratio of the value of imported inputs in total of the finished product. For example, if the price of something is 1 ringgit, imported input is 80 cents, meaning that it's 80 cents over 1 ringgit. That's the ratio. That's A. And then B, nominal tariff on that imported input, and over 1 minus A, minus that portion of imported inputs. I want to show you there are two cases here. The first case, first example, and the second example. The first example, when there is no tariff on imported inputs, okay, inputs. So it gives the effective protection is 50%, compared with when there is tariff on imported inputs, the effective protection is 30%, compared with previously 50%. Let's explain why. Okay. If tariff on finished products is less than tariff on imported input, so we're talking here about N is smaller than B, okay? N is smaller than B. So if N is smaller than B, effective rate of protection, E, is less than nominal tariff. May even be negative. Let me repeat. If tariff on finished product is less than tariff on imported inputs, which is imported input has a higher tariff, effective rate of protection is less than nominal tariff. It may even be negative, because tariff protects domestic suppliers of raw materials more than domestic manufacturers of finished products. That's the reason. On the other hand, if tariff on finished products exceeds tariff on imported input, effective rate of protection exceeds nominal tariff. So we want to know whether effective rate of protection is bigger or less than the nominal tariff. So effective rate of protection is bigger when tariff on finished products N is bigger than tariff on imported inputs, which is B in our example. Tariff escalation. This is the case of usually the more processed a goods, the materials, the more processed, the higher the rate of tariff. So processed goods have higher import tariffs. Raw materials often imported at zero or low tariff rates. So nominal and effective protection increases as at each production stage. So this case of, we call it tariff escalation. It escalates the more processed downstream. The more process of the materials, the higher the rates of tariffs. So that's working against developing countries trying to get into manufacturing, making it stuck as producers of raw materials, because they cannot compete with developed countries. So outsourcing, offshore, assembly provision. Outsourcing is a key aspect of global economy. Offshore assembly also, I don't want to go into detail. Tax avoidance, it is legal. Legal utilization of tariff system to one's advantage. You doing within the law, you avoid certain things that will incur you higher tariffs. However, tariff evasion is evading tariffs by illegal means, such as smuggling imported goods into a country. Another example is you falsify the contents so that you get cheaper tariff, and you also falsify the country of origin so that you can get a lower tariff from certain country. If a country gives preferential treatment to certain countries, so you falsify the country of origin on your products, that's illegal. Okay. Under U.S. tariff law, dutiable imports can be brought into the U.S. and temporarily left in bonded warehouse duty-free for up to 5 years. Owners of warehouse must be bonded to ensure they will satisfy all customs duty obligations. Bonding companies guarantees payment of custom duties if importing company unable to do so. When goods removed from warehouse, firm must pay duty on value at time of removal. FTZ, free trade zone. Areas in the US, this textbook is using the case of the US, where business operate without paying duties on imported products or materials, as long as they remain in the area, and do not enter US marketplace. And FTZ can do just about anything to merchandise, to do repair, repackaging, and assemble. FTZ program treats a product manufactured in FTZ as if it were imported, not made in the US. Custom duties are due when goods are transferred from FTZ to US consumption, to the market. As taxes on imports, tariffs make items more expensive for consumers, reducing demand. Buyers pay more for US-made goods when they would for imported goods under free trade. Job loss in retail and transportation sectors that import foreign-made goods. Job loss in any domestic industry that suffers retaliatory tariffs. Additional cost of imported inputs passes on to consumers through goods and services that use such inputs in production process. So, when we're discussing about tariff, the most important that we must know, or we concerned about consumer surplus and then producer surplus. We focus more on consumer surplus. Consumer surplus, difference between what buyers are willing and able to pay and the amount they actually pay. Inverse relationship between change in market price and consumer surplus. Producer surplus, I'm going to show the graph after this. Difference between what producers are willing and able to receive and the amount they actually receive. Direct relationship between change in price and producer surplus. Yeah, this is consumer surplus. This area here. Total expenditure, actual price. So this is consumer surplus. The amount consumers are willing to pay compared with what they actually pay. This is the area. On the other hand, this is producer surplus. The amount producer is willing to accept and the actual price that the product sold. So this is combined. See, if you put together this consumer surplus, producer surplus. Yes. This is consumer surplus. This is producer surplus. Okay. Now we're going to look at two cases. What happened to when we have tariff? First case is small nation, a price taker, and second case is large nation. So let's go for the first case. Okay. This is we're gonna look at tariff welfare effects. Small nation. So this is before trade. This is consumer surplus. This is producer surplus before trade. Autarky. Point autarky. So what happened with free trade? So this is the amount before trade. 50 autos. The price is 9,500. Now, free trade. Yes. Consumer surplus becomes bigger than previously. Increased by areas of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the whole area. No. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Producer surplus decreases on the other hand. So the overall increase in welfare is this area. The area previously not here. Okay, this is the overall increase in welfare for that country is this triangle. Okay, with free trade. Now, what happened if this country, small nation, implement tariffs? This is a world price. This is the supply of domestic plus supply of the rest of the world. ROW should be, not W, ROW, rest of the world. And what happened if there's tariff? A small nation implements tariff. So this is going to move up to this SD plus W plus T. And there's a mistake here by this graph. Should be, the T is the bigger T. I mean, the taller T. Yes. Okay. It's like T here is another person. DW, 1%. It's like similar to that. I'm giving you an analogy. The T is the taller T. Okay. Okay, now. Okay, no. Okay, with tariff. So what happened with tariff? The price goes up. Previously, this is free trade. The price goes up to this level, 9,000. Let's go back. Let's see. This is free trade, 8,000. Now with tariff, there's an arrow here. If I can make an arrow, it goes up to this curve. So becomes 9,000. And now look at here. There is a decrease in consumer surplus. Reduction in consumer surplus. That's the first effect that we're seeing with tariff. It reduces consumer surplus and it increases the producer surplus. And you see here, the amount of losses by the consumers is A, B, C, and D. This area here. A, B, C, and D. C doesn't matter. It goes to the government, I mean, for the country. It's a transfer from consumer to the government. That's the revenue effect, the C. A also as transfer from consumer goes to producer. But what about B and D? B and D is losses to the consumer. But where are they going? They're going nowhere. That's what we call deadweight loss. Deadweight losses. Kerugian luput. In Malay, kerugian luput. Kerugian luput. The area of B and D. You know why? Because this is inefficiency. This is production inefficiency. This is consumption inefficiency. Because previously, consumers will be able to consume, this is demand, consume 80. Now, because of that inefficiency, consumption inefficiency because of tariff, consumer now consume 60, no longer 80, now 60. So that's a losses. That's dead weight loss on the side of consumption. And the other side is previously producer produced 20 in the country. Now the producer increases production to 40 simply because of higher price, artificial higher price created by tariff. So that's what we call production inefficiency. I mean, production increase not because of they are more efficient, but production increases. This is supply. Production increases because simply of tariff, making it the product more higher price because of tariff. So that's what we call production inefficiency. So similarly, it is noted in this PowerPoint. B is protective effect. This is the protective effect, the production inefficiency. D is the consumption effect or consumption inefficiency. So that's it for the small nation. So the conclusion for a small nation is that there is a loss of welfare through the losses by the consumer. The consumer loses this area here. Okay. Now let's go to the second case, which is a large nation. Small nation previously is price taker. Large nation, because of the sheer size of the economy of that country, so it influences prices in the global. It influences supply of the world. So instead of we were having a horizontal supply curve with a small nation, now we have a supply curve which has some gradient. This supply of the domestic supply of large nation and plus supply of the rest of the world, ROW. So this is the before trade, consumer surplus, producer surplus, before trade of Turkey. Now we're going to study what happened with free trade and with tariff. Okay. Now with free trade, previously if there's no trade, you can only consume 70. Now with free trade, here, increase in consumption to 110, and there's also huge increase in consumer surplus, whereas producer surplus decreases. So this is consumer surplus gets bigger than before trade. There's no trade here, so very limited. So with trade, free trade, increase in consumer surplus. Okay, and consume at 110 and producing at 30. So this is import. Previously also I didn't explain. This is a production. Okay, free trade. This is production. Demand. This is consumption, and this is supply. This is the production. So production, consumption. So not enough. So this is import. Okay. Similarly, free trade. Okay. Now, again, this is the overall increase in welfare. The new area here created. Previously not there. Now, this is the beauty of free trade. Okay, now what happens if this large nation imposes a tariff? So there's an arrow going up. So the price will go up from 8,000 to this 8,800. Yes, that's it. So reduction in consumer surplus. Notice here, consumer loses A, B, C, and D, this area. A goes to the producer. B and D, the same story, which is kerugian luput, deadweight loss, production inefficiency, consumption inefficiency. Why consumption inefficiency? Because they have to reduce their consumption from 110 previously. Now, because of higher prices as a result of tariff, now higher price, they consume less. Whereas the same story previously, I don't want to repeat. C is the same. Goes to the government. Revenue effect. However, one thing here, there is an E here, which we don't have in the case of small nation. Only the C, right? In small nation. But with the case, this is small nation. With the case of large nation, there's an E over here. E. This is the same C, E. This is what we call the terms of trade effect. Okay, the whole thing is C and E, revenue effect. The whole area goes to the government, with the C coming from the consumers in that country, in that large country. However, E is coming from foreign country or foreign countries. E is called the terms of trade effect. So, for the case of small nation, there is no terms of trade effect. But for the case of large nation, there is terms of trade effect. How does it come about? Okay. Let me explain to you. Over here, why there's any E? Okay. When tariff is implemented, if this is the quantity consumed, 90 is consumed, now the quantity consumed is now 90. For the foreign producers, if this is the amount consumed in that country, for that amount, the price that foreign producers willing to offer is here actually. Sorry, here. For this amount, let me repeat. If this is the amount, effective amount after the tariff, for that amount, for foreign producer, this is the price they're willing to sell. So that's creating this area of E. That's why I said earlier, it is E comes from foreign producers to that country. So Okay, so for a large nation, this area E, the welfare, there are three cases. Welfare will increase